If you're looking for the most powerful light ever, you've come to the right YouTube video. If you're looking for a light that's practical, has a good runtime, doesn't get super hot to the touch, and doesn't consume batteries like a madman, then you're at the wrong video. But if you're looking for a flashlight that's enough to blow your mind, then you've come to the right place. In this video, I'm going to show you how to double the power output of the SkyRay King 7x XML 2 LED flashlight. This already puts out a lot of power in stock mode, and after we supercharge it, it's just insane. This is the Cree Q5 zoomable flashlight. It came before the XML. The XML is a more powerful version of that, basically double the power. It's a zoomable version of the XML. And this is the reflector-based WF501B XML2 flashlight. The SkyRay King also has the XML2 LED in there, and it's got 7 of those. So let's head out and test these out. So this is what the car headlight looks like. I'm going to turn off the car headlights and turn on our SkyRay King at 75 watts. So the SkyRay King is definitely double the light output of the car headlights. It's a little different distribution, but it definitely lights up the area much brighter than just the car headlights. Now for comparison, we're going to use the WF501B. That one is bright, but you can barely see it on the camera. So now we'll switch back to the SkyRay King. Take a look. We'll use zoomable flashlights and see what it looks like. This is an XML T6 LED zoomable flashlight. So this is under wide distribution. You can't see anything. You can zoom in, it becomes a square, and you can barely see it. It's because you lose a lot of the efficiency once you zoom it in. So that's probably only 35% of the light. This gives you 100% of the light, but it's distributed evenly through a wide area. And for comparison, we'll take a look at the Q5. It's the previous version of the Cree LED that people used in the flashlights. And this is in a zoomable flashlight as well. This is the wide distribution, you can't see it, but once you zoom it into a spot where it's only 35% of the light output, you can see it as a square. And it's a smaller square than the XML because it's a smaller die. There's your progression of flashlights. The Q5, which was pretty good at the time, it's not very bright. So let's take it down into the trails and see how bright it is to walk around. So we're out here in the trails, and it's a pretty dark area, there's not much lighting. And if you're going to be walking around, this is the single XML WF501B with an XML2 LED. As you can see, it's pretty bright. If anything comes at you from the bushes, you can just turn over and spot it pretty quickly. But the light output is not as great as obviously a SkyRay King. So this is not bad. You can walk around pretty safely with this LED flashlight and not worry about anything in the bushes. But if you really want to be safe, you gotta bust out your SkyRay King, which is right here. So if you want to walk around the trails at night and actually see into the bushes, the SkyRay King is the way to go. The amount of light that gets splashed into your peripheral is very good. As you can see, it's almost 180 degrees. Whereas if you use the single XML, you can't see very far to your peripheral, so it's not very safe. And most of the light is just right in front of you. So with the SkyRay King, you pretty much have the same visibility as in the daytime. The SkyRay King actually comes in headlamp versions, so if you got that, you could actually walk around the park, walk around the trails, and see as if it were daytime. And nothing can come at you because as soon as you look at it, it's pretty much blinded. So if you got the headlamp version of this and souped it up, supercharged it, you could probably walk around like it's the daytime. And nothing could bother you because you have the power of the sun on your head. So we'll switch back to the WF501B, and the SkyRay King makes this thing look like a toy. This is still a 10-watt flashlight, very powerful. It's got a lot of throw, but nothing compared to the SkyRay King. And then we'll switch to the zoomable flashlight, which is pretty much a joke, even compared to the WF501. Because you can either see like this in a spot, or you can either spread it up. So the reflector-based flashlights give you the best of both worlds. It doesn't give you the zoomability, but it definitely gets all the light out there that you need. If you don't want a crazy flashlight, the WF501B is definitely the way to go. So that tree up there is probably 100 meters away, and the SkyRay King can light it up, no problem. The eye can actually see a little better than this camera. Not by much, but just a tiny bit. So you can see that bridge over there? SkyRay King lights up the entire bridge. If anyone's coming over that thing, you can see them coming right away. Here's the WF501B. It can barely light up that bridge. So now I'll walk out there with the SkyRay King and show you how bright it looks when I shoot it up into the sky. So I just ran at the camera with the SkyRay King. Probably couldn't see a single thing. If you're driving around the backwoods, you could probably mount a couple of these on the light bar. They're only 30 bucks each, and definitely light up the entire trail ahead of you. Definitely good supplementary lighting. Just point one off this way, one off this way, one off this way, another one off this way. Flick a switch, and you can have yourself quite a bit of light. So the SkyRay King definitely lives up to its name. It is the king. So there's a quick look at what the SkyRay King supercharged version can do for you. So you can keep watching this video if you want to see all the mods I did and everything I did to make it 75 watts continuous, 85 watts peak. If any cougars jump out of the woods at me, I'm certain that this thing will blind it and it's going to go running off. This could probably even scare away a bear, but definitely don't want to find out. So thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed that little video. As you can see in the light comparison chart, the BMW 3 Series headlights only have about 3,600 lumens, and that's basically what the SkyRay King outputs at stock. Once you upgrade to 85 watts peak or 75 watts continuous, you've got 237% of that light output. So you basically have the power of 2 cars' headlights in the palm of your hand. I'm going to show you all the upgrades and all the things you got to do to get your SkyRay King operating at 85 peak watts or 75 nominal watts. It's going to be over twice as bright as stock. If you keep this thing stock, it'll run 78 minutes on high, 130 minutes on medium, and 369 minutes on low. If you supercharge it and double the lighting output, then you're going to cut those times basically in half. So it'll last 30 minutes on high, 1 hour on medium, and probably 2 hours on low. Once you're done those upgrades, this will be the world's most powerful flashlight that fits in the palm of your hand and can fit into your front pockets. It's so bright that it actually blinds you with the reflected light from anything that you hit right in front of you. It's actually not a trick of the camera that makes it look that bright. Your eyes actually will see this light, and then your iris will close. So at stock, this is already a very dangerous light, but with the additional upgrade, this becomes even more dangerous. This light's going to be so powerful that you can't hand it to anybody who isn't experienced with a high-powered light. If you hand it to someone who's not experienced, most likely they'll shoot it at something right in front of themselves, blind themselves, and then they'll probably point it into their face and blind themselves. So be careful with the light once you upgrade it, and even be careful with it at stock. The reflector on here is probably 98% efficient, so all of those lumens are getting punched out the front. That's what makes this light so powerful, and the world's most powerful light. There's nothing that's this size and puts out 8,000 lumens, mostly because it gets too hot and it's not really practical. But if you want a powerful light, this is how you do it. So for example, this is a 42 watt light punching light upwards. When I run this 75 watt light, you'll see the difference in intensity. It almost completely drowns out the other light, even though this is only double the wattage. It's only double the wattage, but it's way brighter because of the high efficacy of the LEDs and because of the 98% efficient reflector. This is probably 4 times more light that it's pushing up towards the ceiling than this 142 watt CFL. The color temperature is about 4,000 to 5,000 Kelvin, and the color temperature of that light's 2,700. The upgrade includes adding more conductors so that it can handle the extra ampacity, the extra power, adding 2 more 40 amp Mosfets, adding a 90°C cutoff switch just to make it safer in case it gets too hot, and moving the positive wires over so that it bypasses the current limiting resistors. Adding a heatsink to the back of the LEDs, and adding some highly conductive thermal compound so that you can move all the heat over to the flashlight's aluminum body. There's a little notch in the circuit board. You can take that out using a corkscrew. You can get that hooked in underneath and just pry it out. Here's a list of the items that you'll need. They should only cost you around $5 if you order them off eBay. Mosfets and the additional wire. The bimetal switch should cost you $2 at most. And if you don't have the resistors laying around, you might be able to find them in other electronics that you have around the house that are junked away. You don't really need the heatsink or the JB Weld or the heatsink compound. Without the additional cooling, the flashlight just won't last as long. LEDs are not like other light bulbs. They don't really burn out. They just decrease in efficacy. The efficacy of the XML2 LED is about 116 lumens per watt. So if you don't add the additional cooling, that will just slowly decrease over time, quicker and quicker. The lifetime of an LED is measured in LM80. That's how long the light can run to the point where it only outputs 80% of the original light output. So 80% of 116 lumens per watt. So let's take a look at the L80. Cree is saying that you can run this LED for 42,300 hours or 5 years straight. So let's say we supercharge the SkyRay King and that makes it run a little hotter. Now it's going to degrade to 80% light output in 5,000 hours. So that'll allow you to run it for about 208 days before it goes to 80%. So don't bother with the cooling if you're just after a flashlight that you're going to use once in a while. If you're going to run it for a little longer, you can add some cooling. But as you see, what's the difference between 625 days and 208? It's not very much. So as long as the flashlight has adequate cooling, your LED will survive and its LM80 will not decrease by too much. The first step is to relocate the positive wire of the LED over to the left side of the resistors so that you bypass the resistors. Since you're going to be running twice as much current through it, you got to add parallel conductors. You'll want to add 22 gauge wire, silicone insulated and rated for 200°C. That itself can carry about 13 amps, so combined it'll carry over 20 amps easily. The stock MOSFET only handles 6 amps, so to push 20 amps we're going to have to add 2 additional 40 amp MOSFETs. The reason we're using 2 MOSFETs in parallel is that we're going to reduce the resistance by half and we're going to reduce the losses within the MOSFETs. Since our gate to source voltage is a little low, we need to do that. The circuit board is sized perfectly for the 8878, so there's no modifications you have to make. You can just put it right on there. We could just leave it like that, but I want to add a protection circuit, so definitely do that. Otherwise, the thing might heat up well over 100°C, and that's going to cause the batteries to go into thermal runaway. And if your lithium-ion cells don't have a protection circuit, you definitely need to add this to it. To add the protection circuit, all you got to do is cut the gate trigger and then jumper it using the bimetallic thermal switch. Don't forget to add your gate drain resistor, otherwise when that thermal switch kicks in and opens the circuit, the gate's going to stay charged because it's isolated and the flashlight will stay on. So definitely add that gate drain resistor. You can think of the gate as sort of a capacitor. It's isolated, so as soon as you charge it up, it's not going to drain. Even though it's charged with a few nanocoulombs, it'll stay on for a very long time. The resistance in the air is not enough to take that charge away. Try to use something between 2 and 3 megaohms to drain the gate. You don't want to use a resistor that's too low, otherwise you're going to draw power while the flashlight's on. We're going to go ahead and add this heatsink onto the back there. So after you trace out the ring and the 4 holes onto your heatsink, you can go ahead and grind that and then drill the holes for the screws and the wires. We're going to put a thin layer of JB Weld on one side of this, the heatsink. So you mix it in equal parts, 1 to 1. So just put a little on there and then spread it with the razor blade. And just clamp it down. maybe press a little bit more onto your clamp, not too much, you don't want to break the LEDs, and then it should set overnight. This thermal paste cost me $3 and it has a thermal conductivity of greater than 3.17 watt per meter Kelvin, so this is pretty good stuff. So be generous, cover it up, and hopefully you don't have to take it apart anytime soon, because if you do, this stuff will make a mess. Alright, so now we're ready to put it back together and power it up. Now we're going to test the protection circuit. You can heat it up with a hairdryer, or you can let it heat itself up. If you let it heat itself up, it's going to damage the LEDs a little bit since you put in a 90 degrees C trip. But if you put in a 60 degrees C trip, then you probably won't damage it by turning it on and making it go really high up. But if you want the flashlight to stay on for a lot longer before it cuts out, then put in a 90 degree. That's probably as high as you should go. So let's test this one out and see how well it works. So there you go. It's tripped 90 degrees. Once it cools down to about 65, it should turn back on. So that's the protection circuit inside the SkyRay King. Works pretty well. Now you know if it heats up above 90 degrees, it'll click itself off. Okay, so now with the two MOSFETs in there, this should provide the max wattage and max current. If there's any time that it's going to burn out, it's going to be now. So after 10 seconds, it pulls 75 watts. So we've got our flashlight up to a 75 watts, 83 peak. Now we're pushing 717 on the lux meter. As you can see, at a peak wattage of 85 watts. And it draws 20.33 amps. That's a pretty respectable peak power output, and it's already getting hot just from initial testing. Alright, so after upgrading the SkyRay King to over 70 watts, we've got it here in the backyard. You can barely see anything right now, even with the naked eye, but we've got the camera's flash on, or the camera's light on. You can see a little bit. Let's check it out and see how far we can see now. Oh yeah, that's definitely much brighter than before. You can light up way down into the next guy's, into the neighbor's yard and the neighbor's yard. That's how bright this thing is now. You can see up this super tall tree. That's probably a, so that's a 200-foot tree. You can see the entire thing. This is insane now. You can see the neighbor's yard, neighbor's tree, the neighbor's tree. Lights up everything. So without the light, it's like this. The field, it can't light up much because the field doesn't have much on it, but it can light up a good 400 feet away there. So there you go. That's the upgraded SkyRay King 70 watt plus flashlight. You can light up. You're gonna light up the entire backyard with this sucker. It's insane.